everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. We have got a very transformational week ahead. There's no easy way of putting this. There is a lot of change happening in the skies this week. This is going to be the astro weather for March 19th through the 26th. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Happy Sunday to all my Sunday crew. Hopefully you guys are doing well post St. Patrick's Day. And you've made it out of some of these mutable squares. We've got a lot of things taking place this week. We've got Pluto entering into Aquarius. Mars is going to be entering into Cancer. We've got the spring equinox here in the Northern Hemisphere, the mark of the true new year. The energy just totally shifts. So stay with me. We're going to be making videos all week. We'll be going deeper into some of these transits. This is just to give you guys some insight into some of these ingresses. And what the week ahead is going to feel like. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Make sure you click the button below. Make sure you're subscribed. Those of you guys who thought you were subscribed, make sure you're subscribed. And if you're not, you should be. Give me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment. Let me know where you're tuning in from. I appreciate seeing the comments from you guys. It's always great to watch you guys circle back throughout the week and touch on some of the stuff that I predicted. All right, so this is the week that everybody has been waiting for, at least here in the astrological community. We're going to be seeing Pluto make its ingress into the sign of Aquarius, and Mars will be changing signs as well. The energies are very, very different now, okay? We're going to start feeling the squares between Pluto and the nodes much more intensely between now and the summertime, because now we're going to have the North and the South node in the fixed signs in a square to Pluto. And we know that when planets square the nodes, change is happening. We've been feeling the rumbles all week, right? Watching, Venus go through the sign of Aries, come into that square with Pluto, and then finally make its ingress. I guess if there is a silver lining, it is just the amount of fresh new energy in the sign of Aries. So you got to look at where Aries is in your chart. That's where all the action is. That's where you're really starting new things. That's going to have like a domino effect on the other houses in your particular horoscope. And Venus is finally in its home sign. But I want to talk to you guys a little bit about some of these ingresses, more specifically Pluto and Aquarius. So I'll go through the whole week. We'll touch on the 19th through the 26th. But more specifically on Pluto changing signs. So Pluto's been at 29 degrees, okay? Like we have felt that intensity. I kept telling you guys the last few months, as soon as Pluto hits 29 degrees, we're going to start to see the breakdown of top-down structures, anything in regards to big business, big media, big banks, government. The pressure is on. And when we see Pluto, the god of change, transformation, purification, right? Detoxing, death, rebirth. This is Hades' archetype. Change from cardinal earth, which is physical initiations, to fixed air. It is all going to be on the topic of freedom, although it may feel like a little bit of a free fall at first. You know, Pluto is a slow moving planet, and it's going to spend a considerable amount of time in the sign of Aquarius overall. We're only going to see a sneak preview though, because like I said, Pluto is going to enter into Aquarius this week on the 23rd. And it will go in and out of Aquarius several times before finally kind of settling in 2024, going into 2025. Pluto can stay in a sign anywhere between 15 and 25-ish years. It depends on the retrogrades and the particular sign that it's in. But Pluto will generally be in the sign of Aquarius from between March of 2023 all the way up until January of 2044. Now, when Pluto makes its ingress into Pisces in 2043-44, it'll go into Pisces and then retrograde back to Aquarius. So it won't really leave Aquarius until the beginning of 2044. Pluto representing transformation, power, regeneration, but more importantly, intensity. The energy of Pluto is often described as deep, it's penetrating, it's transformative, it can feel ruthless at times. And Aquarius is associated with innovation, right? Progress, technology, revolution. So Pluto's move into the sign is going to bring about significant change in the areas of technology. We're already seeing that with some of the robots and the AI and the chat GPT and all that stuff that's going on. but it's really going to affect social norms and community as well. Now, during Pluto's transit throughout Aquarius, we're going to see major breakthroughs in scientific discoveries, major technological advancements. We can also experience and expect transformation on social and political systems. Now, this could lead to major revolutions and radical changes within our communities. But on a personal level, this is going to be a transit that can bring about profound transformations and shifts in our general perspective. Particularly those of us who have very strong Aquarian energies in our birth charts. So Aquarius, sun, moon, rising, if you have a really strong stellium of planets or focus in your 11th house, if you have Uranus on an angle, if you're considered to be Uranian, you're definitely going to feel this. North Node in Aquariuses, you guys are waking up as well. You're going to start to see these Pluto transits really open up to majorly changing and transforming your future, especially when it comes to communities. Now, overall, this transit of Pluto in Aquarius is likely to bring significant changes, upheavals, transformation, both on a personal and on a global scale. And while it may feel like a challenging time, it also provides us with the opportunity for growth, innovation, and progress. Aquarius is the people, guys, okay? So maybe I have a much more positive, optimistic view of ultimately what may happen. We know that there's going to be 20 plus years of having Pluto in this sign. So it's going to take time to see some of these structures break down and become rebuilt. Pluto is power. So I think that this is generally going to be about power shifts to the people and society at large. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like what this is going to bring about is a total change in the way that we look at power. I think that the masses are going to look at power differently. I feel like we're no longer going to be idolizing this Hollywood Kardashian type of fame. I feel like we're going to be much more cautious about who we give our power to, what groups and institutions we give our power to. Are we giving our power away, right? I've speculated for some time that Pluto in Aquarius may be the fall of, idolizing people because of their riches or because of their fame or because of their ability to control. Political exposure is going to be happening. The ends of kings and queens ruling the masses, right? If we see Pluto in the opposite sign of Leo, we're going to see this breakdown of the ego, this breakdown of the focus on fame and wanting to be seen as royal or regal or a celebrity. I'm anticipating this is going to be a process of separating the elite from their power, ending this technocratic nightmare that we appear to be kind of heading towards. I'm holding space for society to find the way forward in terms of, being able to reform some of the things that are going on in regards to these topics. And hopefully we'll find we'll find new ways to work together and create greater freedom. I'm hoping that this will wake everybody up, right? We're going to strive to make the world a better place, hopefully learning to be more sufficient, focusing more on sharing, repairing, being able to totally transform some of our goals collectively. Now, this change is going to take a great deal of self-awareness, and for some, these Pluto transits can be particularly painful, especially if you are anybody who has planets between 27 degrees to 29 degrees of the cardinal signs or 0 through 3 degrees of the fixed signs. So you're kind of getting it both ways because we will see that Pluto will retrograde back into Capricorn again this year. I think it's time to think about who we are, why we're here, why did we reincarnate, why did we choose to be here at this time, right? What's going on with human consciousness? I've been studying a lot and reading a lot about natural laws and thinking a lot about what is considered right and wrong. And I think that when the human race wakes up and realizes that we are being controlled or we are being thrown into the state of spiraling and feeling like we have no control over our resources, that we do not have freedom, that we do not have the ability to almost escape the matrix, when we realize that it's all a facade, that's when the walls can come crashing down. If you want the world to change, then you have to be focusing on being a part of that change. Okay, that's a lot of the reason why I keep showing up here, creating content, is because I know that's my contribution. I have hopes that it'll create a ripple effect for other people who start to kind of listen to some of my forecasts and realize that change is possible as long as everybody is doing their part. Stop complaining about it, do something about it. Pluto does start a crisis, okay? So there's a multitude of things going on right now in the world. I don't need to go through the list for you, but generally, crisis can be something that sparks or gives us the opportunity to create change. Gather, connect, and share. That's the best advice I can give you, because after all, knowledge and strength in numbers are going to prove to be very powerful over this period of Pluto in Aquarius. I don't think it's really time to put all of our faith in technology. I feel like in some ways technology can be great. It's definitely innovating health and science. But if we become too focused on that, if we become too reliant on clouds and software and servers and the internet just spitting things out and giving us information and not learning to think for ourselves, we're going to realize that we're losing that connection to spirit because we're becoming so overly reliant on some of these technologies. I guarantee you guys we're going to hear about corruption in science. It's going to emerge because Aquarius is a more scientific sign. Pluto is about corruption, crime. But I don't think that's all that we're going to see. I think of Pluto in Aquarius, I start to think about the dark side of technology. Drones, robots, biotech, surveillance technologies, and where we may potentially come up against significant security threats. Digital IDs, carbon taxes, right? Social credit scoring. All of these things are very Pluto in Aquarius. But I really doubt that some of these dystopian controls will last for very long. I'm sure that the Uranian side of this transit will prevail and bring about mass awakenings and a realization of what's really going on. Look for innovations in energy. I think that has the potential to really free a lot of people. I also think we're going to hear more about the potential of being able to move forward and finally start talking about coming up with solutions for abolishing debt. It's pretty safe to say that's a lot of the reason why we're kind of in the mess that we're in right now, especially financially. I like to read to you guys the symbol for 1 degree of Aquarius. And I know I've read it before because I pulled it out and I was like, oh, I read this. But maybe it's just me. I recently moved to San Antonio. There's lots of missions here. And I find that this particular Sabian symbol is very, very personal for me. So Aquarius 1, an old Adobe mission. The keyword is durability. The foundation, the theme is spiritual foundations. The symbol speaks to the reassurance and sustainment, anchorage, and durability. The images of an old Adobe mission alludes to the ability that everything rooted in spirituality will flourish and survive. In the 1800s, Spanish missionaries sprinkled the coast of California with missions in an attempt to establish religious roots to an adjunct to territorial expansion. These historic missions have survived to the present day. The emphasis on the symbol is on psychological as well as physical survival, on the necessity for maintaining meaningful ties and enduring values that sustain all men. At the positive, its highest represents the spiritual ingenuity, strength of character, and endurance. The negative is an indifference or an inability to grasp the deeper meaning of things today. The accent is on sustainment. You may find it important to surround yourself with things or people that help you feel anchored and secure. Your greatest advantage lies in giving time and attention to the relationships that are most important to you. Write a letter or make that call to someone you haven't heard from in a long time. Guard against getting over-involved in superficial and time-consuming activities. Don't neglect the things and people who really matter. Stepping stones would be reassurance, sustainment, certainty, endurance, anchorage, survival, hope, service, and spiritual integrity. So sometimes the Sabian symbols are quite literal. Sometimes they're figurative. I guess in my case, I see it as being something that's literal. It's cool to live in a place where there's all of these missions that have been around for now hundreds of years. They're still standing. But I think that more in a figurative sense, the mission is representation of the roots that go deep, right? The fact that it was built on solid foundations, maybe not literally, right? We've seen whether it's temples or cathedrals or churches or missions, there is some need to maintain that support. And generally that's going to come from a community, right? Whether it's community who wants to get involved in preserving and restoring some of these buildings, whether it's the churches that have been able to maintain and continue to run and fund and take care of these spaces. the people that go there that pray and see that as something that's really sacred because it has been able to kind of stand the test of time. But right now, spiritual foundations are really important. Like, this is what is going to help a lot of people, I think, weather the storm. And sometimes it's not as simple as putting money in the collection plate and, volunteering. Maybe it's not even about going to church or going to service. Maybe it's not about those regular routines. I think of Pluto and Aquarius as really focusing on the power of our communities and where we will become more resilient and capable of being able to overcome some of the crisis that's coming because we have strong communities, strong connections, good friends, right? Friends in high places, people who are well educated, people who have solutions. I'm curious to see what happens because I know that Pluto is going to be in and out of this degree for a number of years. It's going to be about 2 years that it's going to go back and forth over this. I do think that the key here is to not get over involved in things that are superficial, right? Not getting too consumed in what's going wrong, not to get too consumed in what's breaking down. And maybe it sounds like an ignorance is bliss situation, right? When the world is like falling apart, we can't just party and say, oh, well, it's fine. Everything's going to be okay. We have each other. But it's about being able to be more firmly rooted in that connection to other people. So we're not falling off track. We're not getting distracted. We're not getting scared. We're not making, fear-based decisions. We're not fighting each other, right? Don't neglect the things and people who really matter. So when times get tough, who or what do you have to fall back on? And I think it's interesting that it talks about reaching out to someone that has not heard from you in a while, right? So I start thinking about, are we in a place in some of our relationships or our friendships or society where we only reach out when we need something? Because I've experienced that a little bit with some of my friendships over the last few years with Saturn and Aquarius. I've realized that. And I've also caught myself in situations where am I only making the effort to reach out to friends when I'm in a crisis or when something's going on or when it's on my time. And I've been really trying to be on top of being more consistent and following up with people and trying to kind of stay connected. Obviously, it's been crazy, but I want you guys to think about that, right? Do we have community that we're connecting with just when we need something, or are we trying to focus more on that connection on a regular basis? Even though things are really challenging and it may be stressful for these next couple of weeks and months ahead, what are we doing to stay connected to our friends, right? Our networks, our groups that we're a part of, and how by being a part of that can we create a foundation where we're supporting each other and creating those firm foundations so that way we're not easily kind of getting swayed or broken down, right? Just some food for thought. I pulled cards on both transits this week. I pulled a card for what's going to happen with Pluto and Aquarius, and I obviously laughed out loud to get the Devil card because this is about Capricorn. This is also about Saturn structures. This is about feeling bound spiritually, physically, literally, bad habits, addictions, right? Falling victim or falling back into going back to those things that we feel like we can't kind of break free from. The Devil sometimes comes up for me a lot when I think about addictions, habits, bad relationships. There is this like Stockholm syndrome connection to the Devil of knowing that you should break away, or maybe even that you can break away, but you just keep going back because you're stuck in this habitual cycle of not knowing how to be treated well, or not knowing how to get out of the trauma cycle, right? Constantly living in a state of fear or, waiting for the next shoe to drop. So we can, in a way, be addicted to the drama of this stuff. We can be addicted to this feeling of having our power taken away. Saturn in Pisces is going to be a lot about whether or not we identify as a victim or we're channeling that higher level of Saturn and going, no, there isn't going to be any more victim mentality because I'm creating boundaries and I'm not allowing certain individuals or those in control to impede on my boundaries, even if they cannot be seen. Spiritual boundaries, things that are affecting us emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. So I think that the Devil card coming up for the Pluto transit is perhaps this harsh awakening that we have allowed power to be abused and to be, controlled and manipulated. And whether or not we're allowing ourselves to be kind of suspended in this state of fear and not knowing how to leave. Watch for the bad habits coming up, right? And I think that with the Sabian symbol and it talking about focusing on what matters rather than focusing on what's falling apart, what's going wrong, me, Aquarius talks about everybody. Everybody's going to go through this collectively. And while we may be all in different kind of spectrums in terms of the financial challenges, the health challenges, the emotional challenges, right? For the most part, these changes that are coming with Pluto's ingress is going to affect everyone. And we're going to realize that this is not necessarily about division based off of our belief system or our gender or orientation, our race. This is going to be about power structures versus the little man. It's going to be more a war of spiritual conflict. This is going to be, I think, a war on the classes, not even necessarily anything else that divides us. And if we allow this to continue, we're going to get stuck here. Okay, the energies are high, guys. Now all the way through August, you guys are going to see with the node square Pluto, something in both the Capricorn and Aquarius area of your chart needs to be transformed. Something needs to die off so something can be reborn. So this is the birth that's coming, right? Aquarius is about our goals. It is about what everybody wants. It is about our future. So you guys have to take a look at where Aquarius is. Know that Capricorn and Aquarius houses are really going through this power struggle right now where something is truly trying to emerge over the next couple of years. That's going to be positive for all of us collectively. But it also may require us to acknowledge that we are also holding ourselves back. Now, also this month, we're going to see, or this week, excuse me, we're going to see Mars go into Cancer. And this is going to be an interesting energy because as soon as Mars gets into Cancer, Mars is going to be the host and the dispositor of all of these planets in Aries. We're going to have the spring equinox. So to have the spring equinox and all these planets in Aries in hard angles with Mars is combative. It's confrontational. It's agitating. And I had said in a previous video that what we're going to see over the next few months is that society is going to fall into two different paths. You're going to have the people who are going to be more the, Sun, Moon, Neptune, and Pisces that's afraid and hiding out and not wanting to say anything and opting to just kind of, go underground and keep to themselves. And then you're going to have the other group of people that are going to be more all of these planets in Aries and the Sun square Mars. That's like, yeah, it's going to ruffle some feathers, but I'm going to say something. I'm going to do something. I'm going to make moves. And likely it's going to be very evident very soon here, right around the equinox, which path we're going to be taking individually. Now, Mars in Cancer, right? I think of like that meme where you see, I'm sure many of you guys have seen astrology memes. There's the crab that has like the knife and the guy's like trying to pick up the crab and he's like doing this. Crabs are not linear the way that they walk. They go side to side, right? And Mars is a planet that wants to be direct. It wants to just penetrate. It wants to attack. It wants to get something going. But when Mars enters into the cardinal water sign of Cancer, it's emotional. Now, technically, Mars is considered to be in its detriment in Cancer because we generally like to see Mars in Aries, in its exaltation in Capricorn. So when it's in Cancer, it's more challenging because it's taking action in an emotional way, right? So while Mars is the planet of action, assertion, and energy, Cancer is the sign of emotions, nurturing, sensitivity. It's about the home. It's like, do not mess with mama bear. And Mars represents the outward expression of our energy and our drive. So while it's in Cancer, it's really working with inner emotions. So we're going to see that the emotional world and the desire to protect and care for others is kind of like coming up more so, right? Out in the world, we're taking actions in regards to protecting our emotions. Now, while Mars is in Cancer, the energy of Mars can be inhibited. Basically, it's weakened by our emotional sensitivities. This can make it difficult for Mars to make a decisive action plan. And instead, it may become more passive or moody. Additionally, Cancer's tendency towards emotional manipulation and indirect expression can frustrate Mars' more straightforward and direct approach. So there can be this sense of trying to do things to get emotional reactions, trying to get people to feel or respond in a certain way. This can be very confusing as we start to see planets in Aries come into square with Mars. However, it's worth noting that, if even though Mars is in detriment in this sign, it doesn't mean that it's ineffective or powerless. We're going to get something done. It simply means that Mars is going to need to adjust a little bit more and find a different approach and finding new ways to channel its energy and its assertiveness in a much more sensitive or nurturing way. Something that aligns more with Cancer's qualities. Like I said, it's interesting to me that while we enter into Aries season, we're going to have Mars that's going to be not functioning as well. It's going to be debilitated. And that tells me that we can't just take action without having some kind of emotional connection, right? We can't just be acting and then thinking later. We need to make decisions that are, yes, taking our emotions into consideration, but not letting emotions run the show. I love the fact that we're going to see throughout the Mars and Cancer transit out the gate a trine to Saturn. And Saturn in Pisces will be this foundation or like the vessel that'll help contain its actions or its emotions, right? Saturn can be about boundaries, limitations, structures. So I see Saturn in Pisces actually really supporting the beginning of the Mars and Cancer transit. I think of it as like a cup or a vase or a tea kettle, right? It's physically holding the structure for the water, Mars and Cancer. So some of us may find that emotions are getting to the point where it's just pushing us over the edge and we're like, okay, I need to start acknowledging these emotions. I need to start doing something with them. So hot baths, detoxes, hot lemon water in the morning, saunas, getting massages. Like we need to be working with this emotional energy pretty much all week long. And I am going to also pull the chart for the equinox. I'll show you guys that as well once we get into the week ahead. Let me read you guys the Sabian symbol now for 1 degree of Cancer. Cancer 1. Here we go. A furled and an unfurled flag displayed from a vessel. The keyword is adaptability. I'm tongue-tied today, sorry guys. The theme is decision. The symbol speaks to a dramatic change of heart and realignment or a turning point in life. The image of the flag and the unfurled flag is displayed from a vessel alludes to the change of authority or a transfer of allegiance. The indication here is that the vessel, which can also symbolize the individual, is about to sail under a new flag or align itself with a new or different cause. The suggestion here of this image is that nothing is irrevocable and that if an individual discovers that he has been untrue to himself or his commitment or finds that he can make no further progress towards achieving his ultimate goal or purpose, then it is justified in changing his loyalties. On a practical level, this degree can indicate change in a political party or group affiliation, lifestyle, or even citizenship. At its highest, the symbol represents flexibility and willingness to risk temporary upsets to endure the hardships associated with any extreme change in order to maintain self-integrity. Watch for indecisiveness or irresponsibility. The accent is on a major change of commitment and realignment. The realization that you've outgrown some experience or your objectives are better served elsewhere may cause you to close the door on something in your life or take a different path. Your greatest advantage lies in recognizing when change is in your best interest and having the courage to make it. Guard against being afraid to let go of the familiar or a feeling that others will be upset if you leave, if you don't go down with the ship or sacrifice yourself just to please others. The stepping stones would be change of allegiance, loyalty, transition, flexibility, compromise, and indecision. The flag being displayed from a vessel, being like a ship, a boat. I think this is me, a little, people aren't going to like some of the stuff I have to say, but I think about just how many people who have been in Senate or Congress displaying or wearing the Ukrainian flag. I think about whether or not people are going to be changing allegiance in regards to which party they are affiliated with. I'll just leave it at that. But it would not surprise me if there are some people who are basically saying, I cannot continue to be a part of this party. I'm leaving. I'm going to spin off and become an independent, or I am going off and, switching sides of the aisle. That may happen as well. I think we're going to see that some people are kind of realizing that if things aren't benefiting them in the path that they're on, that they may undo certain commitments, right? Remember, because Mars is going to be debilitated here. And Saturn doesn't do as well in Pisces. So there can be a sense of people getting very moody and emotional and sensitive and reactionary as a result of people kind of checking out and being like, no, this is not my thing. I'm hoping that there's going to be decisions that are being made for integrity reasons, right? Where it's just like, I can't get behind this. I can't support this. And maybe perhaps that Mars in a square to the sun is going to make certain individuals act differently, communicate differently, think differently, right? But a change of commitment or realignment, outgrowing experiences. And to some extent, Saturn in Pisces is a little sad, right? There is some moodiness. There's not going to say depression, but there is some moodiness that comes with that. And I'm wondering if there's going to be like growing pains and people realizing like, it's not easy for me to make this decision or walk away from this commitment or change jobs or relationships, but it's just like, I can't. This is not in alignment any longer. I pulled a card for Mars in Cancer. I got the 8 of Wands. So things are going to be shifting very quickly, very rapidly. We're going to see some new development or action taking place. And keep in mind, because planets in Aries are still coming into squares with Mars in Cancer, all of the newness that's taking place in the area of Aries in your chart is prompting some of the actions that are going to be happening for you in the Cancer area of your chart. And they square each other. So these are both going to be in cardinal signs. So we're going to see a lot of activity between the two. 8 of Wands is swift moving, right? Things develop very quickly. We're going in a new direction. We're going in a new path. Positive card. I'm excited to see how that manifests for that particular transit. All right, so let's get into the week ahead. We're going to start with today, Sunday the 19th. The big thing that you guys are going to be feeling, and I just put a video out on this. Hopefully you guys saw my Mercury and Aries video where it's all about walking the walk and talking the talk, showing up, having new ideas, being willing to be a little bit more direct and just getting things done. Great day to really start thinking about what can you achieve? What do you want? What do you think? Get all of that ready in preparation for the new moon that we're going to be having in Aries just after that. Later in the morning, we're going to see the moon leave Aquarius and it's going to come into Pisces and it's going to come into conjunction with Saturn. That'll be right around midday. Now, Moon Saturn, emotional, sensitive, retreating, difficult time relating. There can be this sense of feeling separate. Great day for isolation, meditation, relaxing by water, being by the pool. This is right before the moon and the sun are coming into Aries. So this is going to be like that closing out phase, the balsamic period. So as if Moon Saturn wasn't grumpy enough, the Moon Saturn and all of these planets in Pisces are very much about reflecting and winding down and closing things out. Like Sunday doesn't feel like a very social day to me. This seems like a day that's better spent being at home, meditating, clearing things up, reflecting on stuff, catching up on your rest, your recuperation, like everything in preparation for the week ahead. Especially considering these ingresses we're going to have, especially considering the fact that we're also going to be seeing that we're coming into the new year. This would be the time to like clean your house, blast your chants, do your mantras, burn your incense, get everything ready for this new year. This is where we reflect. Really, truly, Sunday and Monday is like New Year's Eve for all the normies. Okay, so it's basically, as far as I'm concerned, December 30th and 31st. What are we doing around that time, right? We're reflecting on what has happened for the year. We're positive and optimistic about the New Year's. We're getting ready to set our intentions. That's the kind of stuff that you want to be doing today. It's not a very social day. We'll see the moon leave that conjunction with Saturn as we get into Monday the 20th. We wake up in the morning and the moon is heading towards Neptune. So the sun's at 29 degrees, okay? Monday is going to be a day to watch because we've got a couple 29s happening. Okay, this is the final moments before Pluto changes signs. We've got 29 degrees of Pluto, 29 degrees sun. So the sun is sextiling Pluto saying, hey, this is wrapping up. This is what we're letting go of, or this is what we are feeling into. We've got a lot of planets in Pisces, all that stellium. It can be prime for conspiracy. It can be prime for people having mental health issues. You know, when the moon's in Pisces, we see more drinking, more drugging, more emotional issues. But if we're tuning into Neptune energy in an appropriate way, we know that there is a need to wash everything away collectively before we can start anew. So in my opinion, I'm never going to encourage you guys to call out of work. Monday is such a great mental health day. It's such a great mental health day. Even looking at the transits now in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, yeah, I'm probably going to make some changes to my schedule on Monday. It's just the way that it's going to go, because we're going to see some people that are just going to be very moody and very unsure about what the future holds. That Sun sextile Pluto is an awareness of power struggles and things getting ready to shift. And this is the very last degree of the zodiac, right before we're coming into that new moon. But 29 degrees marks an end of a cycle. So we're wrapping up Pluto in Capricorn themes, right? We're wrapping up all of these power struggles out in the world. Pluto's about to go into Aquarius. We're wrapping up all of these hidden, secret, subconscious type of things. The sun's about to go into Aries where it's exalted. Same day, we got Venus that's going to touch on the North Node. Thank Goddess. Stability, resources, money, food, pleasure. Guys, we need things that are going to make us feel grounded. Okay, so whether you got to go and put your feet in the dirt, or you got to do a face mask, have a really healthy, grounding meal, focus on things that are going to help you get back into your body in the midst of some of the stuff that's going to kind of rile us up. I really recommend working with aromatherapy right now, because Taurus energy does very well working with flowers. Bach essences are also really great. That's something that I have used a lot through the transits of Uranus in Taurus. I've had so many oppositions to all my Scorpio placements, and I feel like I have really been most supported by herbal substances, teas, aromatherapies, Bach essences, cell salts. Like, all of these things have been a lifesaver for me. So you may feel inclined to opt for more natural treatments of kind of soothing or calming the body this week. North Node Venus wants people to have money physically in hand, okay? It wants people to have resources. I think at a 4, it's going to be people going, do I need to have some money at home? Just stick under the mattress? Do I need to have some extra food on hand? Do I need to make some changes with some of my investments? Like, what do I have? What do I possess? There's no coincidence that we're hearing right now that all of this money is now going into the bigger banks. A lot of people are pulling money out of smaller banks and credit unions, and they're going to some of the bigger ones, hoping that they're going to have more security. I have said for the last few months that when we start to see Jupiter go into Taurus in square Pluto and Aquarius, right, in the spring, or when we start to see Venus, going through the sign of Taurus, there's going to be a lot of wealth transfers, because Taurus is money. So as Venus is coming into this particular sign, it's going to square off with Pluto, it's sextiling Saturn, it's going to come into contact with Uranus. Perhaps people are going to feel safer having their money in these bigger banks. And so there's billions of dollars now that are flooding into these major banks, and they're going to have a lot more control. I'm not a financial advisor. I can't give you guys recommendations. I've had tons of people email me. I've seen comments of people being like, do I pull money out of the bank? I can't tell you what to do. And I'm also not going to stroke those fears. I'm just going to tell you once again, over and over, if you don't have something, you don't possess it. Whether it's crypto, food, money, resources, it doesn't matter. It does make sense with the North Node and Venus to have some things physically, but it's also about physically supporting the body, right? So if you got to just like zen out with your crystals right now, burn some incense. If you got to be focusing on grounding your energy, do that. Spend time in nature. That'll really help. We'll continue to see Venus, moving through the sign of Taurus. And I did a video on that, so if you guys want to know where that is. But just know that this is about bringing stability and security to everybody, that everybody deserves to have health and wealth and beauty, and maybe a little bit of art and good music and good atmosphere will really go a long way. That moon in conjunction to Neptune is emotional, sensitive, spiritual, right? It does represent the side of the subconscious, and our dreams may be more active. We might notice that there's just more going on where people are talking about conspiracy. We're going to hear more about water. Keep in mind, the sun's going to be conjunct 29 degrees, so that's Shiat. So I'm looking at the 20th to the 21st, 22nd. hearing more about pollution, water pollution, things that are toxic, chemical spills, water that's been tainted, people that are sick. We're going to hear more about this stuff. Mental health issues are huge right now because we're seeing so many squares between Mars and a mental sign and all of these planets in Pisces. If you or someone you know is struggling with these issues, you need to ask for help, because turning to substances, drinking, drugging, partying, we're going to hear a lot about food that is being spiked, or drugs that are being spiked, things that are going to have mixture of substances in it that are not safe. Unfortunately, we do see more energy with overdoses and mental health issues with some of these conjunctions and these squares. So do make sure that you're being kind to other people. You never know what other people are going through. You never know what they're dealing with behind closed doors. And there can be some shocking and surprising things that can come out where we start to realize that people have been silently suffering and going through things. And it's not until after the fact that we realize that that was going on. Okay. We want to still be careful with conspiracies, assumptions, any information that we claim to be factual. You guys need to wait until we see the sun and Mercury and Jupiter all being in the sign of Aries. We're going to have a little bit more information over the next month in terms of what is really happening in the world, right? And what we can do about it. Still seeing that sun in hard aspect to Mars. So that's been kind of hanging out for a couple days. So we do feel like there is this mental pressure. We may feel like things are changing, right? All these planets coming to 29 degrees. We're like, this is wrapping up. Like, what's next, And then the sun is going to enter into Aries, so it'll move into its exaltation. So that's going to be happening right here in the PM hours. So it'll be Monday evening. We're going to see that that's when we're having the true astrological new year. That will be the beginning of Aries season. I still recommend waiting until after the moon swings into Aries in a couple of days, maybe touches on Jupiter before we start new things. It's a weird time, right? So this particular equinox is going to be about setting the stage for the next 3 months until we get to summer solstice. And what's unusual is, like I said, while the sun is in Aries, we'll have this for a couple days, but this is going to talk about the next 3 months. Mars is the dispositor of all of this Aries, and Mars is in Gemini, and it's in a square with Neptune and the moon. So that means that we have people who are acting instinctually, being like, I don't care what the media is saying. I don't care what the government is saying. I don't care what they're telling us. Like, I'm going to do my own thing, even if they're saying that everything's fine. Because the truth is that we're not getting the whole truth. And I can go through a whole list of things. I've been listening to people leave comments. I've been, hearing people debate about everything from the financial situation with the banks to what's really going on with politics, to what's happening with the war in Ukraine, to what's been happening with January 6th. There's tons of things. And the truth is that nobody really knows. We just have some individuals going, I don't really care what they tell me. I'm still going to be proactive in making sure that I am doing what I need to do in order to defend myself, to be protected, to feel secure, to feel safe. I'm not going to slow down. I'm just going to keep things moving. Now, if I show you guys the solstice chart, the equinox chart, I keep going back and forth with those. This is for where I am. So it's, usually I do this 0 degrees Aries, but I happen to be in San Antonio. I wanted to see what it's doing here. We're going to see the sun enter into Aries in the afternoon. And that moon is still in conjunction with Neptune. And the ruler is Mars, and Mars is in the square. Okay. So where I happen to be, it'll be a Leo rising, and it's going to put the sun in the 8th house, which is interesting because it's shining a light on secrets and stuff that's hidden, and taxes and death and regeneration. And the 8th house can be about savings. It can be about anything in regards to other people's resources, right? And we see that the sun and Mars are in a square. Okay, so we've got a lot of back and forth between groups and activity with other people, and people uncovering or becoming aware of something. The moon, Neptune conjunction can also talk very specifically about stuff that's going on, that's hidden, that's behind the scenes. 8th house stellium is some heavy stuff. I mean, death, regeneration, releasing, letting go, all of that fun stuff. But if I were to look at this from a 0 degrees Aries standpoint, that way it makes more sense for everybody. There we go. We have the stellium of planets that are in Aries. So you got to look at where Aries is in your chart. But the exalted sun is action. Mercury is the mind. Chiron is what we're healing and becoming aware of. And Jupiter just inflames the whole thing. Where individuals are pushing back and challenging something about a narrative, about movement, travel, documents, about communication, social media. Individuals are saying, no, we're speaking up. Now the moon, which represents the home, the homeland, is in conjunction to Neptune. So it's saying people are dealing with being unsure about what's going on with where they're living. Do we move? Do we relocate? Are we potentially safe? You know, what's going on in regards to our relationship with people in other places? I think we're going to hear a lot more about immigration, people wanting to leave countries and going to other places. I think you're also going to see with the sun and Mercury in a square with Mars, it's essentially saying that more people are going out there and wanting to collect their own information. This may be the very beginning of what's going to be a bunch of independent media, like a bunch of just independent journalists that are going to start going out there on the scenes, shooting, you know, video, sharing things, talking about things, and really challenging the narrative of what's been going on in the media. I think to just make it very simple, Mars and Gemini square Neptune has literally been a mass amount of people going, this is true because I saw it on TV. This is true because the news told me so. This is true because it was in an article or it was in a paper. So many people are going, where are your sources? Where are your sources? Here's the source. But what we have found is over the last 6 or 7 months, a lot of things that have been previously published in the news, in media, on social media, is not factual. And I'm not saying that one narrative is right and the other was wrong. It's been on both sides. We've seen this both ways. I see some really crazy conspiracy theories, people making suggestions about things that are not factual. And I've seen some really crazy things coming out of really prominent people, news anchors and journalists, and things that are also proven to be not very factual. And perhaps that's been part of the appeal, was to create so much conflict that people are distracted and they're not aware of what's actually going on right now. Also, I have this strong intuitive feeling, this hunch that a lot of the things that are going on recently with Venus in a square with Pluto, which it's still kind of in this chart, has been about scaring people in regards to their resources. All of this money is now flooding into 3, 4, 5, 6 major banks. Now those institutions are going to have a mass amount of the money that's in circulation. So if and when they do decide that they want to push things forward with CBDCs, we're going to have even less control because we're not as diversified with banks. So people are going to have less control over saying whether or not they want to be, you know, getting involved in that, if they're wanting to do that. Diversification is going to be a huge thing as Venus is coming into conjunction with Uranus. I think a lot of people are going to be looking at gold and silver. I think a lot of people are going to be looking at putting their money into physical things, tangible things, real estate, property. Taurus can be land, agricultural things, and also just diversifying. You know, Uranus is going to be things that are free, that are not necessarily going to be connected to centralized banking. So this may be the push where people start to realize that if they do decide to limit withdrawals, if they do tell you how much you can or cannot take out, if things do start to get kind of wild, people are going to opt for things like cryptocurrency. They are going to opt for Bitcoin and other things that cannot be manipulated or controlled. So this may be the time that everybody's been waiting for, where they realize, like, now we realize the benefits of Bitcoin. And I myself was super skeptical the last few years. I myself was like, it's too complicated. But now I'm realizing that this may be a turning point for some individuals if they're listening to their gut hunches and their intuition to make investments into things that they say are tangible, can actually protect them, can give them more control, or they can physically hold on to. It may protect some of their assets. It's just going to be whether or not you're asleep at the wheel over the next three months or so, or if you're actually jumping into action. Aries is a trailblazer. They are always ahead of the curve, right? They're doing things before anybody else gets there. They're the first. So many of you guys are going to have the opportunity as a result of this particular transit and then the new moon to say, I'm starting new in this area. Even though I don't know how to do this yet, this is where I'm starting. So set those intentions. This is truly going to be the real astrological new year. As we get into Tuesday, the 21st, we're going to see the moon's ingress into Aries. We have a new moon that will be taking place at 0 degrees Aries. And this is going to be the 0 Aries point. It's one of the cardinal points, which means world events are going to start happening. Okay, you guys are going to see big things. This is super potent, one of 2 new moons in Aries. We're going to have this one, and then at the 3rd week of April, we're going to have a solar eclipse at 29 of Aries. So everybody's going to have to do their Aries work. The North Node's going there soon. Jupiter's going there soon. It's like it or not, here we come. So we're going to have to do the Aries work, and that requires us to do work on an individual level. New moon in Aries is very courageous, it's daring, it's active. It requires you to initiate something. It's cardinal fire. So it's just striking the match to something that's potentially going to, I think for many of us, be new beginnings that are going to be very positive, even though I think it can be a bit uncomfortable with some of the squares from Mars, right? That new moon in Aries, on the 21st, is going to roll. We're going to see the moon in conjunction that night with Mercury. So we're communicating some of our desires, some of our personal thoughts. We wake up on Wednesday, the 22nd. We're still within this Aries stellium. So much energy here. It's just movement. Some of us are going to feel, like I said, we're like caffeinated, but we're not. We're going to need to get active. So you may need to go for a run. You may need to go and work out. You may need to walk the dog. Otherwise, if we don't have an outlet for that, we can kind of like rage war. There can be a sense of us like running around, just being a bit chaotic. I love when the moon is coming out of the conjunction with Chiron and it's coming into conjunction with Jupiter, because I feel like this can be a lot of people who have been afraid to speak out or say things or to start things, or if they have felt isolated in society, or maybe they're just wanting to share more about what they've learned about their own personal healing. Great time to share. That would be on the 22nd, but the 21st and the 22nd, you guys can do all of your new moon stuff if that's what you guys want to do. Then we go to Thursday, which will be the 23rd. And on Thursday, we're going to see Pluto enter into Aquarius. Specifically, it's going to happen in the morning, depending on where you are, but it's going to be in the morning. And I always get a little weird when planets hit 0 degrees, because I'm like, what is it going to produce? What's going to happen here? What's coming, right? And 0 degrees is the purest form. So will we see things the day that happens? Maybe. I actually think that there's going to be more triggers that are going to be happening when the moon comes into Taurus. Because while the moon is still really close to Jupiter, it's still very positive. But while we see all these planets in Aries, we're still looking at Mars. And here's Mars hitting 29 degrees. It has not gotten to this degree yet because it's been coming out of the shadow of the retrograde. And Mars is still in conjunct Pluto. Okay, so there is still something not resonating about our actions and what's actually changing. I think that all week I'm going to be very skeptical about the things that I'm hearing out in the world, because I think there's going to be a lot of wanting to cool things and like not make people feel scared or startled as we continue to see more economic challenges. So Pluto enters into Aquarius. I'm waiting for when the moon enters into Taurus, because I know that the moon is what actually makes triggers happen. So it'll be on the 23rd in the afternoon that the moon enters Taurus, which is generally pretty good, right? Because the moon's exaltation, the moon's going to be in contact with the North Node. We've got Venus there as well. But the problem is this is when the moon is going to square Pluto, and the moon will conjunct the North Node. And that's going to bring up some kind of collective challenge in regards to what people physically possess versus what changes are going on with the financial system, what changes are going on with politics. There's no doubt Pluto in Aquarius will be some kind of political revolution. This is the same energy that the United States had its revolution on. This is the same energy that we saw within the French Revolution. And generally, these are not pretty times, right? They're not. And then on top of that, we got the nodes that are squaring Pluto. So it's saying that there has to be some breakdown, change, transformation for something new to emerge. And I think the North Node in Taurus and Venus in Taurus and the Moon in Taurus is going to be like, we need things that are valuable. We can't just be seeing money as a number that's on a screen, but not actually physically have anything. So I think there's going to be more talk about, what do we need to be backing our resources? Land, metals, securities, and things that are actually going to be deemed valuable. Right? And so people are going to be really fixated while the North Node and the Moon are in Taurus going, what can I have? What can I possess? Whether this is trying to get cash out of ATMs, trying to go and get food, trying to, move money around. Things are going to get really hairy as soon as Venus starts getting into conjunction with Uranus. And you're going to see a little bit of this as the Moon goes through there. Pluto will retrograde back into Capricorn, guys. Okay, so it's only here for a very short period of time. On June 11th, it's retrograding back into Capricorn, and it's going to be in Capricorn until the beginning of 2024. So we're going to see Pluto retrograde from 0 of Aquarius back to 27 degrees of Capricorn. It'll be about 9 months next year in 2024 that Pluto will be in Aquarius. So most of 2024 will have Pluto in Aquarius, but it won't be until the end of next year that Pluto fully moves into Aquarius and it's there to stay. So it's safe to say like the next 2 months or so, we're getting a sneak peek of what's coming. So you may be hearing about decisions that are going to be made this year about how it's going to affect our finances next year. Okay, next year we're going into an election year. I do think that they're trying to focus on speeding up some of these agendas in regards to, agenda, 2030, 2040, whatever the date is. I think it's coming much more quickly. And I think that there is an incentive to get everybody moved to a much more digital, centralized system. And people are starting to ask questions. What does that mean for my resources? What does that mean for my investments, my wealth? How does that affect taxes, right? And that Moon in conjunction to the North Node, I think is going to have us thinking about, well, what should I be investing in? What should I be investing in, right? Then we get to Friday. And on Friday, the 24th, the Moon will come into conjunction with Venus very early in the morning, which is generally a pretty positive transit. So that can be a great time. Some people may be monopolizing on some of the things going on in the world. They're making money, but when things are breaking down, it might be a time where people are kind of getting in and seeing it as an opportunity to get stuff that might be just very heavily discounted. Everything's going to kind of feel like it's on sale is what I'm imagining. And it's all because of that square to Pluto. That's what I'm basing this off of, because this is not your typical Moon-Venus transit. It's not. This is the opening square from Pluto. Then we're going to see the Moon continue to move through Taurus. It's going to come into contact with Uranus later in the afternoon. And this is on a Friday. Okay, so we've got Moon Uranus emotionally destabilizing, especially in regards to resources, in conjunction to Venus, and it's going to square Pluto. I'm watching to see what's going to happen Friday, how the markets are going to close. I'm curious about that big time, because I feel like how that closes may determine what happens over the weekend and whether or not people are feeling like they have the ability to put money in or get money out. You still have some time before Venus comes into contact with Uranus as well. So there's a little bit more time here. Watch for those emotional upsets. There can be a sense of there being lots of change and fluctuations with money. We don't really have a lot of support to anything else in the skies. You're not seeing sextiles or trines or anything like that. So you're kind of on your own here. The Moon's not making very many aspects. It's already come out of the sextile with Saturn, and it's still not so in such comfortable angles to Pluto. We get to Saturday, and this will be the 25th, and Mars enters into the sign of Cancer. And this is really going to be highlighting where now we're not having as easy of a time with all of these planets in in Aries, because Mars rules Aries. So there's a square here. And so all of Aries season, Mars is going to be in Cancer. So it's going to be like, I want to take action, but I'm emotional, or I'm scared, or I'm trying to align my feelings with my actions. And they're kind of like in conflict. 0 degrees of Cancer is another 0 degree cardinal point. So I'm really going to be watching what happens with that particular day, because it is still very much connected to even the sun at a 4. I'm watching the housing market. I think we're going to hear a lot more about some of that stuff. And that'll be about 6 weeks of having Mars within the sign. So if you're a Cancer, sun, moon, or rising, you're going to feel this. Aries and Scorpio, because you guys are ruled by Mars, you're going to feel this ingress. More challenging for Aries rising, Scorpio rising. I think you guys are going to do well with this, honestly, because it's going to support your ascendant as well as Saturn. So you're one of the few people that I think will really enjoy this transit. What I'm watching for is going to be when we get to Sunday, the 26th. And we're going to see Mercury come into conjunction with Chiron. And that's, you know, we're running the potential of having some difficult conversations, hurt feelings. Words can be helpful or hindering. Words can be medicine, you know, how we're communicating and sharing. There can be a sense of speaking out, but feeling kind of like we're scared, but also feeling like it's the right thing to do, because Jupiter's there. It's talking a lot about integrity, the right thing to share, the right thing to say. This is also a day to watch because the moon's in Gemini. So it's really highlighting Mercury. And you've got Mercury and the sun in conjunction. Mercury's moving away from the sun, so it's not as combust. It's not as much on fire. We're not seeing some of like the ego things. We're seeing people being able to admit, I was wrong. I didn't know better. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. And at least we have sextiles between the moon and Gemini. So great communication day. Great time to sit down and write. Great time to share with other people, maybe plan a trip, you know, film a video, write a blog, maybe start a new book. That's something that I would really recommend you guys do on next Sunday. The only challenging thing is early in the morning, we are going to see the moon that's in a square to Saturn, but it's going to be happening very early. So depending on where you are, as you're waking up, the moon is coming out of the square and it's in a sextile with the sun and Mercury. So I like next Sunday. I just feel like you guys really need to be mindful about hurt feelings and how you're communicating with that Mercury-Chiron conjunction. I'm anticipating a lot of people are going to be talking about what they've learned about self-healing or what they've learned about self-esteem issues, working through mental, emotional issues, because Mercury is very mental and it's in the sign that's associated with the body, right? Breathing issues, issues relating to the lungs, issues relating to the sinuses, issues also relating to the head. There may be some, you know, discussion about the impact that we're having with stuff that's like in the air and how it's like affecting how we communicate, how we breathe. So I think that that's going to come up at some point throughout this next week as well. Throughout this week, we're going to do deep dives. So I'm going to do 2 separate videos. We're going to go deeper into Pluto and Aquarius. I want to talk to you guys about that. I have put a couple of videos out. I did a video last year on Pluto and Aquarius. I talked with my friend and astrologer Rose Theodora. So that's on my videos if you guys want to find that. And I have done some brief previews into Pluto and Aquarius. So I have some content out there. There's lots of people talking about it. I'm curious to see what happens when this ingress actually happens. So I'm anticipating putting out a video on that this week for you, and I'll take it through the 12 signs, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the big transits involving Pluto over the next year or so. And then we're also going to take Mars through the 12 signs of Cancer. And I'm going to talk to you guys about how to work with that transit and what we might be experiencing over the next few weeks ahead. So look forward for those videos. You guys can find me here on Friday night. I'll be here at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern. I'll be doing live astrology readings. I'll drop the link this week so you guys can sign up. I missed you guys last week, so I'm looking forward to being able to do those readings. Please join me if you'd like to get a reading, and you can sign up in advance if you want to make sure that you get your reading. Equally, if you like my style and you want to get a personal reading with me, I conduct my readings live on Zoom with my clients. I'm booking about 2 or 3 months in advance right now, but I do have openings. If you go to my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com, I'm always taking new clients. My sessions are a combination of tarot, astrology, and what I see clairvoyantly. Solar return, synastry, Saturn return readings, elections for specific dates, or maybe you just want to get a forecast reading. I do all of that stuff. I have full and half-hour sessions as well as digital reports. So check out my website. And if you want to learn with me too, I have beginners courses on both tarot and astrology. Hopefully this is a good week ahead. I'm looking forward to creating some of this content because there's a lot of new things to be discussing with these ingresses. And I will see all of you guys in this next week. Enjoy the week ahead. Take care.